after the plague.
Those who lived through the sickness no longer trusted the open air.
Every scar on its skin reminded it that danger could ride the air as easily as tooth and claw.
They stayed close to the stone now, as if trying to hide inside the shape of the world itself.
Flight had once meant freedom. Now it meant picking the safest crack in the world to slip through.
Disease and poisoned air had taken some strength from their wings, leaving fine cracks no eye could see, but every gust could feel.
The wind did not carry just weather now. It carried what the ground had burned and the dead had left behind. Every cloud they passed through threatened to scrape the inside of their lungs raw. The sickness in the blood had faded, but the sickness in the air remained. Forced downward by weak wings and poisoned winds, the airs of the sky began to learn the ground.
Shelter was no longer a high ledge. It was whatever crack or fallen trunk could break the line of sight of teeth.
On the ground, they were no longer above anything. They were simply smaller shapes in the path of larger hunger. The air above them was no longer a promise. It was a test they might fail in the worst possible moment.
For the first time, the sky's hunters truly felt what it meant to almost be caught.
From above, their struggle looked like just another disturbance in the forest. But for them, it was the end of an old way of life.
They had once watched such circles from safe heads. Now they stood inside them.
Desperation forced them to remember that they still had weapons, even on the ground. The law of the valley had shifted. Those who once hunted from safety now had to fight for every breath of space on the earth.
They turned to smaller, safer meals, trading speed and height for caution and detail.
Every mouthful won was a reminder that their bodies were not what they used to be. Behaviors honed through ages of safety in the air no longer seemed to fit this new world.
Even their colors, once meant to signal strength and life, now hid under the weight of the air itself.
The collapse of the sky's confidence emboldened the jaws that walked on the earth. The sky was still theirs in shape, but not in truth.
What had once been effortless, endless glides across whole valleys had shrunk to clumsy hops over hazards.
What they saw in each other's caution began to shape the way they moved. Season by season, the balance changed, not in a single crash, but in a long, uneven slide.
The ones that survived best were those whose bodies and habits fit the new, shorter sky.
Wings alone were no longer enough. Those who could run as well as glide had an edge. They began to lay their future where stone and shadow could hide it, not where the sky could see everything.
Whatever shapes grew inside those shells would know a different sky than their ancestors. They would open their eyes into a lower, heavier world.
The old food chain had broken in the middle, and the weight of hunger dropped hard onto those below. Teeth that once waited for falling scraps now drove the winged ones away from their own kills. Necessity taught them to look down for smaller chances, instead of up for grand ones. Some days, the sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too powerful to challenge. The sky itself felt like an enemy too power
forced into the same cracks. Hunters and hunted shared the same fear of a sky too harsh for either of them.
When the air calmed, the world felt changed again, like a story written over the old one in darker ink.
In the patterns they left behind, tiny differences began to appear. The ones who had never known a safe, high sky moved differently from those who remembered it.
What had once been built for distance slowly reshaped itself for precision.
Those who had survived the worst now watched a generation that belonged more to the ground than to the air. Some dangers they feared never came, while others crept in from places they did not yet know to watch.
Where flight once was their first defense, now teeth and sudden motion had to take its place.
Above ground, they struggled to adapt, unaware that something deeper had begun to stir. Above ground, they struggled to adapt, unaware that something deeper had begun to stir.
Far below claws, wings, and roots, the planet shifted its weight.
They had learned to fear water and air, but now the stone under their feet grew uncertain.
Perches that had stood for ages began to crumble, one by one.
The new generation's first contact with the world was a vibration from below, not a breeze from above.
The same forces that had given them ash-choked skies now gathered for something larger.
Some nights, even in the dark, the horizon burned. They hung between worlds, no longer creatures of the high sky, not yet comfortable as creatures of the ground.